Okay, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get started. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Today is part one of our two-series webinar series to discuss DM Insights. And today we're actually going to hear from Dr. Tara Gostovich, who is located in Marlborough, New Jersey. I'm not going to tell you a lot because Dr. Gostovich goes through this in her story, but she's also going to talk to you a little bit about why, how she uses DM Insights, but then she's also going to explain the benefits that she gets from DM Insights. So without any further ado, I want to turn the floor over to Dr. Tara Gostovich.
Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
I am very excited to be here today to discuss. Oh, hold on. I'm having a. Oh, I have to share.
Yes, you have to share. Yes.
There we go. Okay, let me try this again. I am very excited to be here today to discuss how DM Insights has really impacted my practice, and hopefully you'll be able to make some changes by using the data available to you, the data that is already available in your dental monitoring website, to learn how to effectively make changes based on what that data is telling you. I have a private practice in Marlborough, New Jersey, and I am a solo practitioner. I work by myself. Marlborough, New Jersey is a small suburban town. It's about 1 hour outside of New York City and just over an hour from Philadelphia. And we're about 20 miles from the beach. I do about 250 starts a year, and I am a board certified orthodontist. I've been board certified since 2007. I graduated undergraduate from Rutgers School of Business, and then I went to dental school at the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey, which is now Rutgers Dental School. And my specialty training was completed at the University of Pennsylvania. My practice offers patients a highly digital treatment experience through a fully digital workflow. In the fall of 2019, I had 12 staff members, I had 12 employees, and from August of 2019 through May of 2020, when we could reopen after the pandemic shut us down, I had only 6 employees when we reopened. And coming out of the pandemic, I mean, you couldn't hire a dental assistant. Nobody wanted to get into dentistry. So I had to figure out how I could do more with less. And so we switched over our systems from some digital, being like Invisalign, into all digital, and really moved away from analog. We offer our patients 3D printed appliances. We don't waste appointment times putting in spacers and fitting bands for appliances now. Our expanders, our space maintainers, they're all 3D printed. We offer LifeForce 3D printed custom braces. We do Invisalign, and our patients are all on dental monitoring. So hopefully by the end of this webinar, we'll all be able to explain elements of effective use of dental monitoring insights, understand the benefits and purpose of great data, apply that data to augment conversations with patients, as well as parents and referring doctors, and leverage the use of dental monitoring insights in order to create necessary changes in the practice. And those changes, they're necessary for our happiness. They're necessary for being efficient, and the data helps us find our way. So what is Insights? Insights is a module on your dental monitoring dashboard that organizes practice level data into a digestible and actionable format. This enables practices to uncover trends related to their efficiency of their systems, their procedures, their appliances, materials, as well as the evolution of their patients' intraoral health and orthodontic treatment. Insights can help us make decisions. These decisions are supported by data captured in the practice with regards to your patients, your staff, and your procedures. So what does it mean to be data-driven? What is a data-driven practice? In my opinion, a data-driven practice is one that analyzes the data gathered from platforms used in the practice, uses that data to make changes to office systems and protocols, and improves their ability to optimize care and reduce stress in the office, as well as enhance the patient experience. Don't consider yourself data-driven? That's okay. Maybe your practice is financially driven. You're a doctor who is constantly looking at the numbers and making decisions based on financial aspects. Or maybe you're technology driven. You want the latest and the greatest technology that's on the market. Maybe you're efficiency driven. Your procedures you have down to perfection so that your patients are finishing treatment on time. Or maybe you're constantly driven to improve the patient experience. Insights can help provide you the ability to see what's happening in your practice and make changes that honor your focus, whichever focus you have. So what is a data-driven practice? By evaluating the gathered information that is now available to you on your dashboard, you can leverage the data to determine if an issue is related to patient behavior, my favorite, is it related to materials, processes? I mean, who among us does not place a rubber dam when we're bonding attachments or buckle tubes? Or is it related to staff? And so if you can leverage the data to determine an issue that it's related to, we can then act accordingly. So why use it? Insights is a one-step platform that gives you access to all of the data needed to drive your treatment decisions. You can refine your clinical workflow with access to this data. You can compare activity among your patients and your performance with other practices. You can observe how appliances differ across brands. And you can grow your practice without hiring additional staff thanks to the boosted efficiency. Why do I use Insights? To see my blind spots, really. I use it to know what I don't know with the click of a button. And then I can analyze that to make changes for my staff, my practice, and my patients. Why use it? To see data about your practice objectively. The numbers don't lie. This is why people go to Weight Watchers, right? You have to get on the scale. You have to see the numbers to see your progress. And the best part is the data is collected by automation. There's no additional workload created for you or your staff. There's no special coding to use and no input is needed to get to that final number that is available. So how many times have I said, or you've said, we have to figure out why this is happening, or how many broken brackets have we had this month? And then you have to set up a process to collect the data. And depending on what you're trying to find out, that process of collection can take a long time. And the worst part is it's loaded with human error. With Insights, the data is generated by hundreds of trigger points per scan and automated by the AI. Then it's aggregated into your doctor-facing dashboard. So when you decide you need to know more, it's there for the taking. How do we use it? Well, let's first talk about where it is. So the Insights module is at the top of your dental monitoring homepage at the far right, all the way at the top. If you look there and you don't see Insights, you might see 3 dots. If you click the 3 dots, then Insights appears. Once you click on Insights, it will take you to the top of the page will tell you what your dental monitoring club status is. On the 1st of this month, Dental Monitoring came out with a tiered reward system for high volume use. My practice is at the pro level, which is 1 to 200 new scans a year. But at the tiers above pro, which are expert and masters, Insights is offered to practices at no additional charge. So if you have the volume in your practice to scan more patients, there's some great rewards in those tier levels. So if you're only monitoring your aligners patients, maybe consider adding your braces patients for the boosted benefit to your practice. Just below your monitoring club status, we have a section that's your practice activity. And this is a general overview of how many scans you've done, how many treatment phases you follow, how many teenagers or adults you monitor. This is actually my data, so you can see I monitor way more teenagers than adults. And below practice activity, this is your statistics. So this is a 12-month table where your scans are based on treatment phases, and you can see if a certain protocol group is getting larger or smaller. My personal dream would be to see the blue numbers overtake the green, which would flip my share of chair to more light force cases than aligner cases. If you probably squint at the screen, you can see in the May column at the very, very bottom, you start to see a yellow treatment phase show up. This yellow treatment phase represents pre-treatment scanning in my practice. When I started to think about the patient experience, because we have an all digital workflow and you don't have a start in the chair the way we used to. Nobody signs their contract and gives their down payment and goes right to the ortho bay to have their braces put on anymore. So parents were leaving their down payment, signing their contracts, patients were really excited, and we were all like, bye, see you in 4 weeks. And I thought that was a really bad experience for the patient. They're excited, they want to start. So what we decided to do was give them their brushing kit and their scan box and put them on a pre-treatment hygiene protocol for the 4 weeks leading up to appliance delivery. Because the patient was motivated, hey, let's get them scanning right away so that when the appliances go on, they already know what they're doing. The unexpected benefit of that was it opened up production time in our schedule, because our delivery appointments went from 60 minutes to 40 minutes because patients already had their brushing kit and they already had their scan box. So I kind of watched that yellow as the months go by. Do we have more patients entering pre-treatment? You know, the ones who start their appliances, then they come out of that and they go into their protocol if they're doing Invisalign or light force. And then at the very end, December, January, and February, you'll start to see an orange treatment phase come up. And we started to monitor some patients that are in retention now. So we have a couple different things going on, but I can always look and get that overall picture. Where are patients? Are they in pre-treatment? Are they in aligners? Are they in light force? How many are in retention? The next section you would scroll to when you're on your dental monitoring homepage is clinical data for your practice. And this is where I spend most of my time. And I'm going to come back to this section to discuss it a little further. This is where you can make big decisions based on what the data is telling you about your practice. So we're going to come back to this. But the one last section, which is just under that, is your workflow. So here you can see how your team is responding to notifications. How many notifications are you receiving? How many are you reviewing? How long is it taking you to review the notifications? And you can see a breakout of when you're reviewing your scans. If you click on that See Details in the upper right corner, it'll give you the details, the workflow details of when you're reviewing your scans. So this is the details of my practice's workflow over the last 30 days. Again, with any data point or anything you're looking to evaluate, you always have that drop-down menu on the upper right, and you can choose your time frame. But you can see from this table, we don't review notifications over the weekends. And not surprisingly, the highest number of notifications we have is on Mondays. So we see about 50 notifications when we open the dashboard on Monday. In my office, we start seeing patients at noon on Mondays. So my dental monitoring coordinator arrives around 10 o'clock and she spends an hour or so prior to patient care addressing those notifications. Now that's just how we manage that. How you manage the notifications is completely up to you. Some offices have staff that work from home. If you have an employee who's going out on maternity leave, maybe She wants a few hours to work from home. That's a great job for her. Some office staff give, maybe an assistant has a non-patient day and they can work from home with the app. So however you figure out to manage when you answer your notifications, this table gives you great insight as to when you have to manage the most. Okay, let's go back to the clinical data. I want to dig into this section a little further and demonstrate how you can evaluate the data and make some changes in your practice workflows. So from this screen, you can pick any protocol and any time frame. What I like to do is choose my protocol and then see all notifications and take a look at what jumps out at me. At a glance, the evolution column will tell you, what's getting better, what's getting worse, numbers going up, going down, green arrows, red arrows. But something I always look at and I'm consistently aware of under my Lightforce protocol is missing bite ramps. If you don't know what the Lightforce bracket system is, they are 3D printed porcelain brackets. They're custom designed for each patient. And so the porcelain can be very abrasive against natural enamel. So this is a big notification that I'm always watching. This table is telling me that in the last 30 days, I have 3 scans, 3 teeth that are missing a bite ramp. And if I want to know more, if I want to dig into that a little deeper, I can just click on the see details to the right and get more information. So after clicking that, I can see that in the last 30 days, my upper right central incisor bite ramp has failed 3 times. So now that I know where they're failing, and luckily it's localized, it's not like, oh, we have bite ramps off on the centrals, we have bite ramps off on the molars, we have bite ramps off on the canines. So at least seeing that it's localized, I can try to figure out maybe why it's happening. Maybe I need to check the occlusion better on those anterior turbos. Maybe the patients who lost the upper right one, maybe they hit that turbo harder in excursions, or maybe it was a bond failure. But this is something that now I can consider chairside because I know that that upper right one is failing more than the rest. And I can make changes to adequately check what I think could be happening so that these stay on going forward. Okay, so now that we've wandered through the platform a little bit, I would like to give you a few examples of how analyzing the data really helped me improve clinical protocols and our practice workflows. For my braces patients, the data was showing that 95% of our disengaged arch wires were coming from lower 5s and lower 6s, and that 70% of the missing ties were on the lower 5s. For those practices that use a bracket that has a door or a clip, this is the same as a missing tie for your patients. The engagement feature is missing, the arch doesn't level, and you can't get into your next arch wire as soon as you'd like to. So after considering the data, I felt that the problem started with the missing tie on the lower 5s. And I thought that if we made a change at the lower 5s to prevent the missing ties, then the arch wire disengagement would also improve. So we began to ligature tie the lower 5s in our early arch wires, especially if there was a rotation or a deflection of the wire. So tracking the results. In the last 365 days, and you can see in the upper right, that's the drop down for the time frame, we had 27 occurrences of arch wire disengagement. And you can see that that was previously higher, it was almost 3%. But 27 occurrences, and the majority, as you can see, at the lower 5s and lower 6s. Also, by looking the same time frame, the distribution per scan, we see that most disengagements happen early on in treatment. And then the problem almost goes away by itself. And that makes sense because in the early parts of treatment, that's when you're pulling out your rotations, you're leveling your wires. So if there's any assistants on the call who are stressing out that I've just recommended that you have to wire tie your lower 5s throughout treatment, you don't. Just in the beginning, just until you get those initial deflections out, that helped us. because the problem goes away as the arch levels. So in the last 30 days, we have just one occurrence of a disengaged arch wire. So in a year, we had 27, we made a change, and in the last month, we had just one. So by adding that ligature tie to the lower fives in our early wires, especially when rotations or deflections were present, not only did we greatly reduce the occurrence of the problem, but we eliminated the extra visits created to correct it. So fewer extra visits on the schedule and finishing treatment in less time. The next example I want to discuss relates to our aligner patients. I was starting to see appointments to rebond missing attachments like every single day. It was making me twitchy. So I pulled the data up, and you can see from this screen, again, last 365 days, we were losing attachments on almost every tooth. We had 92 missing attachments. And they're kind of, like I said, they're all over the place. Not really, the lower incisors aren't missing attachments because you don't bond them really on the lower incisors, but all the other teeth were missing attachments. I couldn't figure out a rhyme or reason to it. So I thought was maybe this is a global problem since they're all missing. Let's take a global approach to the solution. We don't have a significant number of broken brackets in the practice. So we decided to switch from self-etching primer pops to traditional etch and primer like we use for our braces patients. We also had the air water lines evaluated for maintenance and O-ring replacement at 2 of our 5 chairs, which had water in the airline that was contaminating probably all of our bond strengths. And then we evaluated our curing light effectiveness and replaced batteries because they weren't fully charged. So we used the Unitech curing light, and in the charging base, there's a circle in the back, and you can put the tip of your light back there and turn it on, and it will tell you how fully your lights are charging. And I think ours were charging at about 70%. They weren't going all the way to 100%. So we figured, let's change the batteries and see what's happens with that as well. So in the last 30 days, we're down to just 3 missing attachments. So if we had 92 attachments in 365 days, or about 7.5 per month, and we're now down to 3 per month, we've reduced the number of missing attachments by over 50%. Okay, on to example 3. I think I speak for all orthodontists when I say I'm regularly concerned about our patients' oral hygiene. We watch oral hygiene notifications closely, and we try to pick up constantly on any information that we think can help our patients improve their efforts. So in the last year, our patients struggled with poor oral hygiene notifications, especially on the anterior teeth. So that's all the yellow bars there. And if you look at the notification details, this is a noticeable amount of dental plaque and food. To me, this is like the worst hygiene notification, and we're not killing it here. So to see that the worst results are happening on the front teeth, I find shocking, because number one, they're the easiest teeth to keep clean, and number two, when there's decalcification, that's what ruins the whole case. So we had to figure out, okay, we got to start with the front teeth. Let's figure this out. And when we looked at the distribution per scan, the data shows that they're struggling. Patients are struggling mostly in the first 3 months of treatment, and hygiene improves over time. And that makes sense because it's a new adventure to brush around braces, and the teeth are sore, so brushing is shorter and they're not being aggressive. So how can we help them? So my clinical staff and I got together and we discussed how could we make changes. The assistants reported that no one was paying much attention during home care instructions. The patient was glazed over, and the parent, usually the mom, was scrolling on her phone. So we made a video of our oral hygiene instructions, and now we text a link to the patient and the parent for them to watch at home as many times as they would like. The video is also posted on our website, and we can refer the patient back to that video at any time. So when we get a notification that so-and-so is struggling, in our message to them through DM, we say, oh, and by the way, go back to our website and watch the video again and make sure, you know, we're hitting on all cylinders. The last thing we did was we added timeframe messaging to our protocols. So with timeframe messaging, we chose to set automated messages to go out at weeks 2, 4, and 6, reminding patients to focus their brushing efforts at the gingival margins and especially on the upper and lower front teeth. So tracking the results. In the last 30 days, you can see we're still far from perfect, but the occurrence of this nasty notification has dropped from almost 8% down to 4.7. So at least we're heading in the right direction. And the distribution per scans has sort of leveled out. So we just set up the time frame messaging in the last few weeks. So we're gonna see how that helps improve our data as well. So we'll stay tuned to this notification pretty closely. Okay, another example, example 4. What turned into example 4 was just going to be a slide to show you that you can compare data across protocols. So in my practice, we only offer Light Force and Invisalign, but if you offer multiple bracket systems, or if you offer 2 different aligner systems, you can compare the data. You can see between Light Force and your metal braces, is one showing more gingivitis or more broken brackets, or overall, do they submit more scans? Maybe they're taking longer to finish. Or your aligners, maybe you have less missing attachments with one or less gingivitis with another brand. And then that can really help you if you're trying to make a decision maybe between 2 systems. Maybe you just want to offer one, but you can evaluate how the data plays out. What I didn't expect to see when I looked at this slide, though, was that if we look at noticeable gingivitis and gingivitis still present, our braces patients have less gingivitis than our aligner patients. What, right? So why would that be? Well, probably because we focus our oral hygiene instructions really strongly on our braces patients. We think that because aligner patients get to take them out to brush, we just assume they're going to have better oral hygiene. And this slide really opened my eyes to see that that does not seem to be the case in my practice. So after seeing the data, it's easy to act on it. So we discussed this issue at Morning Huddle last week. It took us less than 5 minutes, and we came up with 3 things that we are immediately focusing on at our delivery appointments, which we're now reviewing home care instructions for basic oral hygiene and daily flossing with our aligner patients. We're double checking for flash at the gingival margin of all the attachments, and stressing the need to clean the aligners well inside and out on a regular basis, right? I mean, some of these aligners are disgusting. How could we not think that they were creating a lot of gingivitis? So I have one last example, and it's really to discuss the importance of reliable data. I'm going to discuss some broken brackets. This is something I always want to know about in my practice. How many broken brackets do we have? Do we have any broken brackets today? Who's breaking their brackets? Because it's really a drain on practice resources. Whether you're talking about chair time or supplies or extended treatment time for the patient, I can go on Insights and see this data. In the last 365 days, my practice had 18 broken brackets in a year, 18. And when I look at this data, I know it's accurate because the data is automated and it's generated by the AI. In my opinion, you can't rely on the data that comes from your practice management software to give you this answer. So if you're only monitoring your aligner patients and you're not monitoring your braces patients and think, well, I can just get that out of the reports from my practice management software, I'm telling you that data is tainted with human error. It's tainted from the initial phone call when mom reports, something is broken. Something is just hanging off back there. And your front desk said, oh, did he break a bracket? And mom says, you know, he did. So your front desk takes her word for it, and that appointment is scheduled for a broken bracket. But when the patient arrives and your assistant has already set the chair for a broken bracket repair, it's just a broken power chain. There's nothing to see here. But no one corrected the appointment type in your scheduling software. So your practice management software counted that appointment as a broken bracket. That broken bracket is not calculated based on AI. That was calculated based on MI, on mom intelligence. And it works in the opposite way too. What if a patient comes in for an arch wire change and the assistant finds a broken bracket? Now she has to switch gears, set up the whole chair to fix it. And luckily that patient can still have the arch wire change. But nobody changed the appointment type. Who is counting a broken bracket for that appointment? So the broken bracket exists, but it's not calculated. So Insights is giving you the real data based on AI and automation. So I choose to rely on the AI for my braces and my aligner patient data. And I'll leave the MI, the mom intelligence, for the Google reviews and the Facebook recommendations. How will you approach the data? Will you take a targeted approach and go look at the data for something specific, like missing attachments or broken brackets? Or will you take a curious approach? Click on see all notifications and see what jumps out at you, or compare two protocols and see what's happening between them. I suggest you do both. Find out where you can improve your efforts in clinical systems or staffing or efficiency to ultimately improve and enhance the patient experience, to reduce treatment time, and to reduce stress in your office. Better data, smarter decisions. Thank you for your time today. As Tracy said, I hope you can join us again on March 3rd for the second segment of this webinar, where Dr. Barry Benton will discuss how he uses dental monitoring insights in his multi-doctor, multi-location practice in rural Alabama.
Thank you, Dr. Tara. So we have a question for you, and I'll read it to you. It says, when we're in final wires, we sometimes have brackets that are held so tightly with power chain and the wire that you can hardly tell it's broken until you take the wire out. How confident are you that DM recognizes this to even show in Insights?
Sometimes that does happen. And we're constantly helping the AI get better. So sometimes we do see a bracket that maybe wasn't picked up for that exact reason. You know, it's exactly in place on the tooth and the AI doesn't pick it up. So when we see that, we reach out to support and we say, this patient, and you give their little ID code, and you say had a broken bracket on the upper right 5. And that just helps it get better. It helps everything get better. I had a patient one time, they had a broken bracket on the lower incisor, and the bracket literally flipped around, but it was in the middle of the tooth, and the AI didn't pick up on that. But in the 3 years almost 3 full years I've been using it, it's only happened one time. You know, we let support know, and I never saw that happen again. So, you know, there's broken brackets that trick my eye too. How many times do you sit down and everything looks great, and then you walk away and you get involved somewhere else, and the assistant comes back over and they say, oh, he has 2 broken brackets. So I would say, just if that happens, you let support know, but I think that's the exception, not the rule. I think most broken brackets they're out of position.
Yeah. We will send the recording, and we will also have the recording posted on our website. Any additional questions for Dr. Tara? I have a question, Dr. Gostovich. When you go through DM Insights with your team, what do you feel they like, what is their reaction when you guys go through things? Do you feel like they like to go through DM Insights and kind of see, okay, where do we need to focus on training inside the clinic, or is it something that they're not really wanting to go through with you?
I don't ask them to look at the insights on their own. I think insights is really my responsibility in managing my practice. I rely on them most to help me manage the scans and manage the patient experience. But they're very receptive when I come to them and say, we have a problem. We have more gingivitis with our Invisalign than our braces. And they're like, oh, I know why. Did you ever see some of these aligners? I mean, it looks like, you know, who did it and ran. You can't even see through it. No wonder. And they're very willing to, like, let's think of what we can do to change this situation. And we seem to have missing attachments everywhere. Who knows why? Like, they're not resistant to change. They are very supportive. But again, as far as insights, I look at the insights and I go to them to help me figure out why. I don't ask them to analyze the insights and come to me and say, we have a problem with this.
Okay. There are two more questions. It is two parts. So it's one, like, for the same person. How soon can they get actionable data on the Insights platform? But then the second part may be the answer. How many patients do they need to have on monitoring?
Okay, so how soon can you get data is you get data with every scan. So how soon can it be actionable? It really depends on how soon you ramp up your scans. So if you're only going to scan 10 patients, you're not going to be able to act on your data for a long time, because those 10 patients are going to accumulate the data, and then that could even skew what you think is really happening. Because what if they're really poor cooperators, those 10 patients? So
Right.
by ramping up, by setting the precedent that each patient is going to get on dental monitoring, you're going to get data across all patients. And I think that data will build quickly. Your data is picked up at every scan. The scanning gives hundreds of points of data, which are then aggregated and rolled into your dashboard. But I think how much volume you have in scanning is what's going to make your data actionable.
Right. And Dr. Gostovich, I will say, for the second, another piece of this question, your Insights is updated every single night. So when you log on in the morning, it is up to date that morning. We have a question. Is there an average number of patients, a percentage over DM users who do not scan within the timeframes? And that may be more towards dental monitoring. And Dr. Schaefer, I'm going to kind of let you know that at the DM Summit coming up in March, these are some of the workflows we're actually going to go through, and we're doing it based on a lot of different practice profiles, so that you'll actually be able to learn how to keep your patients on time and scanning. Here's a question for a doctor.
Can I just speak to that for 1 second too? So if you're concerned, like, well, am I going to have patients who don't scan? Well, we have patients who don't do lots of things. So you're going to have patients who don't wear their aligners. I'm sure you have patients who don't wear elastics. So I wouldn't let that deter you because you think some patients might not do it, because our practices are wrought with patients who don't do all the things we ask. But you can see how many patients are late scanning. That data is on your Insights dashboard.
Right. Okay. Perfect. One more question. For a doctor new to the system, can you provide best advice for getting going with clear aligners? They do in-office aligners.
So you mean how to ramp up the scanning? Trace,
Let me
you
see
think
if
okay.
let me see if
How
he
to get
answers.
going. I think the thought of going all in with dental monitoring at one time is daunting, because you don't have your systems down yet. You don't know how fast notifications are going to come in, who is going to answer them. And so when we started, we ramped up. We selected, I started using it when we came back from the shutdown in May of 2020. So we put all of our Invisalign patients on it and cleared them out of the schedule first. And then we worked within those patients. Okay, we got down our systems. We know what we're doing. Okay, now we're getting our braces patients on it. Okay, now our Invisalign first patients are on it. And we built it up by treatment phases, like first aligners, then we did braces, then we did phase ones. I think if you start everybody all at the same time and you don't have your systems down yet, it can be overwhelming and you're going to get discouraged. And I think that would be the worst thing, because you would lose out on seeing how amazing it is and how transformational it can be in your practice. So I would say start slow, and as confidence builds, scans build. Scan boxes go out, patient scans come in, and you're managing it.
Perfect. And I know that, that is something else that we will be addressing at the Dental Monitoring Summit. Again, we're going to be working through workflows with different capacities of sizes of practices. We have a couple more questions. So here's one. How do you address patients who are repeatedly not scanning, or they're 30 days late from scanning? Now, this could be a question answered many different ways, I know, and it all depends on the doctor and how they run dental monitoring inside their practice. So Dr. Gostovich, how do you handle your late patients that way?
Well, I'm a mom of 4, so I threaten them. That's how I mother them with threats. The first thing we do is we reach out and we say, hey, Johnny, we didn't see your scan. Please send us a scan. And then when they're 1 week late, we reach out. When they're 2 weeks late, we reach out. And at 3 weeks late, we send them a special message that says, Dr. Gostovich has provided this amazing service to you to help you get through treatment faster with less issues. Something to the extent that you can choose it or lose it. We need a scan in 7 days or it's going to be turned off. We don't say we're turning it off. We just say it's going to be turned off because of inactive use. And then a lot of times at that point, the mom will call and she'll say, oh, we tried to send in a scan, but it doesn't work. And you'll find out by asking the patients, usually the patient has turned off notifications or took the app off their phone. So for your teenage patients, I feel like you have to reach out to the parents as well and say, Johnny hasn't scanned. We've been waiting. Can you tell us what's happening? Sometimes we have to bring the patients in because they haven't scanned in a while and we don't really know what aligner they're on. So, but because everyone's on dental monitoring, bringing someone in is not an issue. There's openings in the schedule because you've kind of got so many patients out on monitoring that it's not a burden to bring someone in who didn't already have an appointment that day.
Right. Perfect. All right, I think that is all of the questions we have. Let me look at one more. For anyone who is wanting to register for Dr. Barry Benton's webinar, it is in the webinar chat. If you haven't already received the flyer to register, and Dr. Barry is going to go through really deep workflows that he uses inside of his practice. And like Dr. Gostovich said, he is multi-doctor, multi-practice. So he will be discussing a lot of that information. And let me see. I think that is it. Dr. Gostovich, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much for your expertise.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We enjoyed. Thanks everyone for joining. We hope you have a great Friday afternoon.